welcome
Uh,
everybody. I'm here with Assad, creator of Genesis. This is for my audience, the introductions,
yeah,
and we're joined by my son, who plays Genesis.
yeah.
So,
And Andrew, you want to introduce yourself to
absolutely,
my
my
community
name's
here?
Andrew Volkowskis, and I'm the creator of Fate of the Norns, the line of Viking tabletop games, so card games, board games, and role-playing games. And
Nice.
since Assad and I both have Kickstarters running right now, we figured it'd be really fun to have a Twitch stream together, or a live stream, and kind of chat and catch up.
Yeah.
Because it's been, what, pandemic. We haven't seen each other since the pandemic lockdown.
Yeah. I believe it was I want to say GriffCon was the last time we saw each other.
No, I didn't go to that one. It would have been probably Breakout in Toronto, no?
Very likely. Yeah.
Uh,
And I had some people asking me if I sleep. I'm like, no, I don't sleep. That's not a thing. We both know that. Like you're
yep.
working on these projects all the time. There's no time to sleep.
7 days a week.
Uh,
What's a
yeah,
weekend?
I
What
know.
the hell's that?
All the time. Uh, so let's talk about our relationship, how we met, and kind of the scene from there. So the story from my end is meeting Raph at Breakout Con, uh and that was such a great experience. You were there with your cousin. You came, you learned how to play Genesis. It was adorable, and I remember being blown away at how quickly you got an understanding for the game and just like gravitated towards it. It wasn't super hard for you to grasp. You were playing it right away. You were fluent. And I think that when I taught it, it was the both of you playing against each other, right? Like you weren't playing against me, right? Good. That is great to hear. I'm happy to know that, like, if you come from a background of playing other collectible card games, that this one is something that you can jump into relatively easily. Uh, and then when I came to Ottawa for GriffCon, I remember my wife and I being super nervous. It was our first time doing in a convention outside of Ontario, outside of our driving distance.
Okay.
We stayed at a hotel. We were scared. We're like, are we there too early? What are we doing? And we walk into the hall, and all of a sudden we hear Raph being like, "It's you!" like recognizing us right away. And all of a sudden we started feeling so much like so calm and so happy, and to find out that our booths were right beside each other. And then that's when I met you, Andrew.
That's it.
And
It was
I
at
was
Can Games.
so envious. Yeah, yeah, that's it. Can
Can
Games, Can
Games.
Games.
That's it. Not GriffCon. It's
Yeah.
Can Games in Ottawa at the curling club.
Uh, yeah, I was so envious of your booth. It looked so pretty.
Well,
Oh my goodness.
look at all the banners behind you right now. You've caught up and surpassed me
Yeah.
here with all those banners. Beautiful.
Oh my goodness. And we, you were you were the family that took us in. I remember this one time we had someone come play the game, and we need to re-sanitize the booth afterwards. And your wife giving us like the Lysol wipes and sprays, and like you took us in and made us feel like we had a family. So first and foremost, thank you for that. Thank you so much.
Oh, Sophia's
uh,
the con mom. Whenever she comes out to the conventions with us, it's like everyone's fed, everything's taken care of. Like she's always like doting over everybody. So
yeah.
everyone's yeah. There's no
Oh.
starving in the booth like we would normally do when we go out to
Yeah.
the long road shows. But you guys were awesome neighbors as well. I remember Can Games. I mean, it was kind of a slowish con, so we ended up talking a whole lot at that convention. And I don't think we sold too much. I ran a bunch of demo games
Yeah.
of the RPG, but it was a very it was like a sleepy town kind of con. It wasn't
Yeah.
a big one like a PAX or a Gen Con or something like that.
Oh my goodness. I haven't done a big convention like those. How is it doing something like that?
Oh, those are oh my god, it's nonstop. So for like Gen Con, I usually go with a crew of like six, and on a Saturday we have to have like a whole game plan, which is like three people inside the booth, three people outside the booth, because there's just a wall of people around the booth, and so there's
Wow.
there's people trying to get to the booth, like, oh, what's going on over there? So you need people that are outside your booth to actually hold like product and show it off.
Yeah.
This is RPG or this is our card game, and so it's a whole different beast than some of the sleepier Canadian cons that we're used to.
Yeah. All right. So now that I think we've got quite a bit of an audience kind of trickled in, I want to make the announcement. So both Andrew and I are running Kickstarters. I know on our side, I put the links to both Kickstarters in the description below.
Oh yeah, they
So if
put
you're
that in
watching from
chat.
our side,
Yeah, let me do
yeah.
that.
Um, and so if you want to go check those out, and we'll be talking about those a little bit later on in the live stream. But I figured this is a good time. Actually, what everyone is experiencing right now, which I'm really excited about, is it's two friends catching up after
The
years
pandemic.
apart. Like every convention I went to for a while, when we were the new game on the block and no one was giving us like a second look, and you were always there at those conventions, and I was like, yeah, I love that guy. He makes these conventions feel like home. So
Oh, I
it's
love to see the
great.
success of everyone in my industry, and that's why
Yeah,
whenever I saw you coming out with like new set of cards,
yeah,
and everything was growing, and my kids would come running back, going, "I need another set of Genesis cards."
yeah,
Then I'd be like, "All right, here's another $20. Here's another $40. Here's another
yeah.
$60. go, go and
You're
support Assad and company." Absolutely. Hold on, let me just post
yeah,
both URLs before I
yeah.
forget.
These are both Canadian games. You're based out of Quebec, right, Andrew?
Yeah, Quebec.
Yeah, yeah. So
Absolutely. So,
Quebec and Ontario, both Canadian games. Raph, you showed the Alpha box. So you want to bring that back for a second?
yeah, it's a collector's item, that one now, I think.
Yeah.
Can Games, yeah. Could it be Can
Yeah.
Games? Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Does it bring back memories?
uh, Yeah. So it's crazy because the Alpha box recently sold on an auction for like $800, $900. Uh yeah. It was at that time it was impossible for me to sell them at all. And now they're worth like hundreds of dollars. So it's crazy to
Ralph, keep
see
that in
how
good
much
condition. You're holding a box full of Black
yeah.
Lotuses. So yeah, so for my audience, explain like what is this new thing that you're kickstarting, because you've been around now for 3 years, right? On the con circuit, you've put out
Three,
four
4 years.
years.
Yeah.
4 years. You've
Yeah.
put out several sets. So for my audience, explain like what are the
Yeah.
sets that are already out for Genesis, and what's the
Yeah.
Kickstarter bringing to this existing body of cards? Or
Yeah.
even take
So
a step
Genesis
back.
is
What
a
is Genesis?
yeah.
Yeah, let's start with there.
Genesis is a tactical collectible card game. It is kind of you think of it as a marriage of your favorite collectible card games with a game like chess, bringing in those tactical elements, a lot of ideas taken from Warhammer and other miniature games, brought into the collectible card game space. So we've been on the market for 4 years. It was the earlier products were basically a proof of concept. It was us doing our dry runs, our early releases to get an understanding of how this industry works, right? Learning the pros and cons, the challenges, learning about manufacturing, building great relationships, great partnerships. All those things was a lead up to Origins. Origins is our debut set, like product, more or less. It is not the first product to market, but it itself is a core set. You can pick this up and just play with this set. You don't need the earlier cards. And it's basically exploring the beginning lore for the world that we're on, which is Jalara. So we're exploring how the world came to be, where is it now, and we're creating a product line that will be accessible for all players. And yeah, I'm just really excited about it. So the Kickstarter here is for that new set of Origins.
That sounds amazing, and you're killing it too. Absolutely, you had like a smashing first day. Blew through all of your stretch goals instantly. I'm
Yeah,
very happy for you, buddy.
thank
That's
you.
that's awesome.
Our community, everyone who's watching with us now, like they are such amazing people, so supportive, so wonderful, and they were just there for us day one to get all those funds together. So I am very grateful, very blessed. But I'll be honest, I did not expect that. I did not expect that overwhelming support
I
off the
did.
get
You've
go.
put in
So
so much hard work, man. I remember you driving up and down the 401, like just selling your game to all the stores up and down that highway, getting up to
yeah,
Montreal and explaining it to the stores
yeah,
in Montreal. You've put in the effort,
yeah.
man, and it's like the fruits of your labor paying off. It's fantastic. Great.
Thank you, thank you. Um, yeah, it's been a crazy adventure. So I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to, maintain the relationships we had because uh, I I know what it was like in those early days. I remember, like, I very actively remember the struggles of like coming out to the Ottawa Can Games, and it cost us like between hotel, food, convention, everything. It cost us like hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars, and we would walk away with only making like 150 in sales. Like it was rough in those early days.
Oh yeah.
But we made some really great friendships. So, I mean, I do the same for my community here. Catch them up on the amazing projects you do, and what you have on Kickstarter right now.
Sure, absolutely. So this is our 13th Kickstarter. So we've been around the block a couple of times with different types of games. So we've had like card games come out and board games, collaborative storytelling games. And so our 13th Kickstarter is really a culmination of a lot of really wonderful artists, game designers, and authors that I work with. And we've all been shuttered in for the last 18 months with no conventions, nowhere to go, but to deliver projects. So what we're doing is we're kickstarting the ultimate Viking anthologies. You can picture there are 9 books that are getting released with this one anthology. So we have 3 novels. So one by Michelle Franklin, which is a crazy whimsical story. If anyone's like a Discworld, Terry Pratchett follower, it's kind of like a very kind of whimsical, funny story of a missionary in the Viking times, and just everything goes wrong wherever he goes, but everything works out for him. Um, then there's a Mistletoe Spear by Stephen Pearl, which is a follow-up novel to The Horn of the Kraken, which was the first novel that he wrote in our setting. So the Fate of the Norns universe is more than just a role-playing game or a card game. It's a whole
Mhm.
universe or an IP, kind of like Warhammer or Star
Yeah,
Trek or Star Wars. Um,
yeah,
so his is a Viking heist. So if you can picture like a merger between Ocean's 11 and Lord of the Rings as plot a plot line. And then we've got Ed Greenwood, an Ontario
yeah.
uh, legend, the creator of the Forgotten Realms for Dungeons and Dragons, and he wrote his
Wow,
first novel in the Fate of the Norns universe, The One-Eyed King. So that's part of
nice.
the Kickstarter. Then he and I ended up working for the last year, more than a year, on a big city box set. So if you can picture the old RPG box sets of like Waterdeep or City of Greyhawk, like these big fold-out maps, books that describe like everyone that lives in these cities. 96 city blocks completely detailed for your adventures, and this RPG is this city RPG is usable in any RPG. You could use D&D, Pathfinder, Powered by the Apocalypse, and of course our own system, Fate of the Norns Ragnarok. And then we've got 2 graphic novels as well. So I was blessed to be working with 2 really talented artists as well. So one is Vincent Pompetti. And so we've got our own, one of our main characters, Vergesa the Firewolf in the Fate of the Norns universe. She's kind of like our Conan. And she's got a really cool story arc that we're describing and going through her storyline in one graphic novel. And then the other one is I've partnered with a professor of medieval literature who is just super passionate about Icelandic sagas. So they have this podcast called the Saga Thing. I should check them out if you guys like Icelandic Viking sagas because they make them super entertaining. They kind of dissect them and go through them in a very comedic way. And so he's working with me as co-authors of the Erbiga saga, which is picture like a Coen Brothers Icelandic saga. It's just like a whole bunch of narrative stories of different people that kind of intertwine into some crazy stories at the end of the adventure.
Yeah.
And we've partnered with Jonathan Borello, who is an amazing artist that does really good comic books where his facial expressions tell the entire story. You don't even need a whole lot of words. And that's just before stretch goals. So all of that I've described is pretty much what's in the anthology before we hit stretch. So
Nice.
that's where we're at.
That's awesome. Wow, that is so much stuff in a single package. That is epic.
It's my probably most ambitious Kickstarter to date. So yeah, I'm going to be doing a lot of project management as well, just for like making sure everything gets delivered in the right sequence and whatnot. But I've got like three of those books I've got my hands in the as an author or co-designer. So it's going to be a busy one. So
Yeah.
hopefully we can hit those stretch goals because nothing
Oh
gives me
yeah.
more pleasure than just sending out bonus free stuff to the
Yeah,
backers.
for sure. Raf, I have to ask, what is your like? Have you seen all of these things that your dad's planning?
He painted this. So you know how like you would get
Oh,
something signed? He actually took
yeah,
watercolors and painted this. This is actually done right there on the spot,
that's
and then
epic.
signed that for F.
That is epic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's dedication, man.
Wow.
Not
Yeah.
just like a Sharpie
Artists
and
are
a weight.
amazing. Yeah.
So
Nice.
speaking of artists, like who are your artists? Give a shout out to the talent you're working with that's doing those beautiful banners
So
behind you.
yeah, our team, Damian is our art director. He was here actually for our championship in late November and stayed until the launch of our Kickstarter, and then left. Like our Kickstarter launched on December 1st, so he was there, and then his flight was that night. So he saw the Kickstarter. We went out for lunch, and then packed his bags and then left. It was intense. So Damian, during the Kickstarter, we did a launch party. So from 9 a.m. till 10, everyone was on Discord chatting, and they were pitching ideas to him, and he created this like epic rabbit warrior thing, which we'll find some fun uses for it for the community at one point. And then the thing I love about our artists is that a lot of them are close personal friends, like they went to school together.
Hmm.
So Damian and then his best friend Philip, and then their friend Mario and Alexandra. Mario and Alexandra are a married couple, and they all went to school together, which was awesome. And then we started bringing in some more artists. So Mikhail, who joined the team and has been killing it, he's the one who did this champion here and this champion there. Uh, he did such a phenomenal job. So I think I have most artists up somewhere
Yeah, that
behind
one
me.
is really striking with the dark background and the light hitting the white dress. That one
Yeah,
really draws the eye to that banner. Yeah,
it's
well done.
it's definitely amazing. Mikhail and the entire team are just phenomenal people, and they love the project very very deeply. So I'm excited to be working with them. Got the game design team. I know on our side, Alex Miller is part of the chat here. He's been a very passionate member of our team and has been um, perfecting the game because I've taken a step back from the game design as much.
Hmm.
I'm now spending most of my time in project management and doing the CEO stuff, and Alex has been taking over the game design stuff. So Origins is also his debut to the Genesis scene,
Oh
and
wow.
I'm so proud of the work he's done. Him and his team, he killed it. And then yeah, we got some writers on our staff. So Carl, who does a lot of our lore, and Brad does. He's our editor. The two of them are just doing such a great job. There's this one comment that came in that I have to scroll up a little bit to find, but Vince put up a thing saying, "Raph, I don't see a price on your starter kit, the alpha thing. Please send me an invoice." So he said, "There's no price on the starter kit that you held up," and he's like, "Send him an invoice. He wants to know how much you're willing to how much you're willing to sell it for."
Sorry.
And then yeah, there was just a lot of people excited about us talking about things. Yeah, like, I keep my chat up so everyone can see what everyone else is talking because, like I was telling you earlier, I stream on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. So
Yeah, you're a
sometimes they
total
can't
pro.
see what.
I've got like two assistants that help me out with all the streaming stuff. I'm an old grognard. I'm like,
Yeah,
what's Twitch? What's Twitter? Aren't they the same thing?
it's a lot. Yeah, I know. It's a lot of work to do all this. Like we put out live streams every Tuesday night, and then we do uh I try to put up vlog videos every day during the weekdays. I was doing vlogs every day of the week, and it's
Hmm.
just so time consuming.
Yeah,
Like I don't know how people can do it. It's oh my
we
goodness.
we were
So
streaming I think since GaryCon. So we started in March of this year because GaryCon was virtual in end of March. So we wanted to stream a bunch of our role playing game over Roll 20. So we ran a bunch of virtual games at the convention. And then we figured ever since then we were like it was really nice to reconnect with everyone that we used to go on the road with. Just like with you, it's so nice to see you and talk to you. And we felt that exact same connection back in March with everyone that we used to share a booth with. Said, wouldn't it be nice to just have a regular, like, just let's get together and just chat
Yeah.
online with a couple of drinks. And then some people were like, well, why don't you stream it? Because you guys will be talking about Vikings and stuff, and the
Yeah.
audience will like it. So we started that, and that went a couple of weeks, and we are like, that's fun. Then we said, oh, Thursdays, why don't we just stream us playing like Valheim? We started
Yeah.
doing that. And the next thing we know, we're like, oh, let's invite some industry people that we know, like that do Viking stuff. And next thing we know, it's like this is now we got a schedule, and now we're streaming twice a week. And we're like, how did this
Nice.
happen? And now we're at like today's stream, this impromptu stream is stream number 35 of Fireside Chat, the
Wow.
Tuesday one.
Nice.
So 35 of
Nice.
these.
Yeah, we just hit our 52nd live stream
Wow.
earlier this week, just before the Kickstarter. So our Kickstarter, like our live stream, which announced our Kickstarter and everything, was our 52nd, a full year's worth of live streams. So it's like everything kind of led up to this one big moment. It was awesome. Yeah.
Well, it's so nice to be back on the road too. Like Raf and I did
Yeah.
two local conventions
Oh,
here in Lachute, Quebec. So this
yeah.
summer was the very first one, and it was so nice. Like both of us, and it was an outdoor convention, and I was like, how rare is that? You got an outdoor convention,
Yeah.
like a flea market kind of style. And I was like, nobody's gonna come by. But then like tons of people were just eager to be out of the house post pandemic. They were like, oh, tell us about these Viking books. And you start talking about a role playing game, and
Yeah.
in rural Quebec, it's just going over their heads. They're like, I don't understand. But oh, card game. Oh, is this a trick taking card game? Oh yeah, I'm sold. All right, give me one of those. And oh, these are novels. I can wrap my head around that. Yeah.
Wow. So I'm gonna drop a little bit of a spoiler for my community, but something that's been on my mind is that I do want to, in the future, develop my own RPG. And it's been something that I've been super curious about. We have a wonderful lore and IP that we can use.
Hmm.
And I've been meaning for a very long time to reach out to you and talk to you about the design process of an RPG. So let's pick your brain. How do you start designing an RPG?
Well, it really comes down to what are your design goals. And so when I first started, when I didn't know anything about game design, and this is like back in the 80s and early 90s, even throughout the 90s, I was kind of learning and tripping over a lot of mistakes and stuff. It was all about like, oh, let's do some cool mechanics first, and then like build some around mechanics. And in the 2000s, I kind of had this light bulb moment with the Euro board game invasion. And if you looked at the design philosophy behind European board games, they had it right. Their very first priority is what play experience do I want to have at the table?
Yeah.
What are the player dynamics that I want my players to experience? What is the flow of the game supposed to be like? What's the level of inclusion and interaction? And based on that, then we build out mechanics. And
Mm-hmm.
so this is how I ended up not even going with dice for our role playing game. We ended up going with
Nice.
runes. And that was
Yeah.
just a completely like down a rabbit path that I had no model in terms of how to do this. It took like 6 years to get the runes actually from inception to what it is right now,
Mm-hmm.
because we wanted to get rid of things like whiffing, right? So who's got time to show up to like a Pathfinder game where it takes 20 minutes for your turn to roll around before you roll dice to roll the hit,
Yeah.
and then you roll the two, and you're like, oh, I missed. Wait another 20 minutes for it to roll around to you. Oh, I rolled a
Oh,
3. 40 minutes. I've done nothing in my evening, and I've only got like
yeah.
one evening every 2 weeks maybe to sit down and play a
Yeah.
role playing game. So with the runes, everything is all about action and reactions. When it's your
Mm-hmm.
turn, you draw some runes, and those are your action economy. And then you play those runes based on what you want to do, and your character's abilities and spells are tied to the symbols of those runes. And
Yeah.
so you're always doing something, and if someone wants to counter what they're doing, they have to burn their actions to either parry, dodge, counter, those kinds of things. And
Mm-hmm.
so even if, let's say, your effect is nothing, you've burnt your opponent's action pool. And so when someone else decides to attack that opponent, well, they've got a lot less actions at their disposal. It becomes like an action reaction paradigm. Same thing with
Mm-hmm.
hit points. When you look at hit points, since the onset of what was it, Gary Gygax's Chainmail, that's where it all began. It was a miniatures game, And hit points were always relegated to one, two, three, maybe four hit points per little miniature that was on the board. And so it was very easy
Okay.
math. But if you look at RPGs ever since, the numbers have just been getting larger and larger and larger. And fifth ed D&D is like one of the biggest culprits of you've got hundreds of hit points. And what do hit
Wow.
points do, really? You're just doing math. You're like, I hit, okay, he did 13 damage. Let me just do math. I erase, I do math. Has anything changed in the game? Zero. The only thing
Hmm.
that changes in the game is when you hit zero hit points. Everything until that point is you're just doing math for the sake of doing math. So I wanted to get
Hmm.
rid of anything that you're doing at the table that detracts from the experience. You shouldn't be doing accounting for the sake of doing accounting. You should be playing a game. And so
Yeah.
with the runes, the way it works is you've got a bag of runes, and your bag of runes is your life total. And when you draw runes from your bag for your actions, but when you take damage, you lose random runes in your bag. And those runes you can't draw until you get healed. It means you're losing some of your abilities immediately when you get hit. Every time you get hit, there's an immediate impact on your character. And there's no lookup tables, there's no math. It's just
Hmm.
reach in, pull out some runes, taking damage. And the
Hmm.
visceral effect is there. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of the design philosophy after, trial and error and learning and looking at other design principles from other domains getting applied to like the RPG space. So
Yeah.
it's exciting to hear that you're going to be creating an RPG, and we'll
I'm
definitely have to
excited.
talk. We'll definitely have to talk
I'm
a lot more.
extremely
Yeah.
That's awesome.
excited.
Yeah.
You got
Yeah.
Raph.
It's one of those things. Like I grew up playing Diablo, Final Fantasy, like video game RPGs, not so much tabletop. But my really early experience of gaming with my brothers was my mom would be like, okay, we're gonna go visit our aunt, and our aunt has no kids. So it'd be the four of us brothers trying to pass the time. So
Hmm.
one of my brothers would take a graph piece of paper and draw a dungeon on it. And then he would be like, okay, during the car ride, you three create your characters. And when we get there, we're going to go through the dungeon. And he would create the campaign, he'll create all the monsters, all this kind of stuff. Eventually, he had a book of all the stuff that he could easily draw from. And this is what we did every time we went to go visit someone's house. My brother would make these campaigns, and I remember doing at least like 3 or 5 times. Like it was a few times, and I just had such a blast with it. So a lot of my game design experience and a lot of my influences come from video game RPGs and my brother doing this. So I've never played D&D. I've never played Pathfinder or those other like more formalized tabletop RPGs. But I think on one end, it's a blessing because I can do something. I have a different perspective coming in,
Yep.
but it's also a hindrance because like I don't know what's on the market. I don't know what other games do. So I'm
Well,
going to spend my time doing some research, but it's definitely something I'm interested in doing.
I think you should start by writing down your ideas and your approach first before you get contaminated ideas from what's out there already. So have your idea. Seriously, think of how you would like to
I
play
just
it
I
and write it down,
Yeah,
and then do research
yeah,
and then see what works, what's out there, and then you can refine your idea afterwards. Because the
yeah,
worst thing is then if you haven't written anything down and then start looking at everything that's out there, then you'll forget what your initial idea was. You'll go, oh, that's cool, oh, that's cool, that's cool, and then you'll start cobbling together something that's already out there. And it's better to have that original
yeah,
idea that's in your head right now that just needs that
yeah.
refinement of
I
what
I
works,
have
what
something,
doesn't.
um, but I just appreciated the word you used when you said contaminated. And I was like, that's an interesting choice of word there.
Well,
But
because a
yeah,
lot of
I'm
the
excited.
RPG space is very much we're going to take something that already exists, we're going to add 5% change to it and release it. That's it. That's all it is. There's no real innovation. And
Yeah,
now with Kickstarter and a lot of this new blood of designers coming in, it's so much more interesting. It's so much more
yeah,
refreshing in terms of what you see at the end of these Kickstarters, at
yeah,
conventions. It's yeah, it's a whole renaissance in our
yeah,
space right now. It's amazing.
yeah,
And even your card
yeah,
game, I mean, the fact that you're playing with a
yeah,
board, you're not cloning
yeah,
something that's already out there, like a Pokemon or a Magic. You've got a completely different setup that's fresh. Someone walks by and looks and goes, "Oh, What are they doing here? Cards on a board.
Yeah, that's the thing I found about like that's what I'm also finding in the collectible card game space is that um we've seen the same games in this industry for a very long time. Now we're seeing a really big change, and there are so many games coming out right now that make me very excited for the future of the collectible card game space. And the fact that we have the opportunity and the honor to add our name to that landscape, it's amazing. And I'm excited to see what the future has in store for us. But yeah, I there's so much stuff I want to explore. But RPGs, I know you're the person I'm gonna be reaching out to when it comes to that.
Awesome. And don't overlook novels because as much lore as you can pack into an RPG rulebook, the moment
Yeah.
you have an author that steps into your world and starts
Mm-hmm.
writing a novel, even you as the creator of the world just take a step back and go, "Wow, I didn't realize my world could have this many dimensions." It's
Oh
it's
yeah.
it's incredible what they can do. So the first two
Yeah.
authors that came and played Fate of the Norns and wrote novels was Scythe and Sword and Horn of the Kraken. So it was Chris Chalice from Ontario and Stephen Pearl from Ontario. Lots of talent out of Ontario, and they blew me away what they did with the Scythe Kona. Scythe Kona is like a witch archetype. She deals in the unseen world of spirits, and she channels spirits against their will sometimes, deal her effects that she wants to. But in the game, I mean, it's just described as it's pretty much laid it out right now. But in the
Yeah.
novel, they've got these spirits as like with personalities and talking in her ear and arguing with her and amongst themselves. And she's like, shut up. And like, so it
Yeah.
completely added that extra level of characterization
Yeah.
to that archetype that, now after that I was like, okay, now let's incorporate that into the role playing game and
Mm-hmm.
into the role play at the table. And it all came from the novels.
Yeah. Like something that we have, and I'm like, proud of it. I'm really excited about it. It's not something that's on the forefront of a lot of players' attention, which is we have something called the Akashic Codex, which is our anthology of all our stories, and we're in like I think we just wrapped up chapter 22. Like it's not super short, and I the first three chapters I wrote myself, and I occasionally get messages from people being like, "Oh, this is so well written." I'm like, all right, like tone down. I know I'm not that good of a writer, but then we got Carl who came in, and Carl is a lifetime RPG player, miniature player, and um, enthusiast writer. And he came in and brought life to this world. Like his chapters are amazing, and
Nice.
I'm really excited to see what he can do with doing an RPG and other cool projects with us. So
Well, just like you're probably going to come see me for the RPG, had a CCG in the works for the last 4 years too. I think I've told you this before. Vigrid,
yeah,
a hexagonal card game. That's it's still a ways to go. Where we've been developing it for a while, but I'm going to come see you as well for it because like it's a whole different beast in terms of how do you set
yes,
up the tournament scene? How do you set up the drafting
yeah,
scene? I mean, I know how Magic does it and how Pokemon does it, but I mean, that's like a top down. I'm interested in like what were
yeah,
your experiences building up bottom up in terms of
yeah.
going into the stores and how does that work? Because that's definitely something that I'm passionate about. I love, but we've got your game and we play all these card games at home too.
Yeah.
And this has been in the works for a while, and the balancing issue is always an issue. And the other thing we were looking at, and I'm curious if you've gone down this route, is nifties for your cards, like non fungible tokens in the
Yeah.
crypto space. Because one of the things that I want to do is launch it digitally and analog. So
Mm.
this is still a ways off because of that ambitious goal of launching them on both platforms. But also, when we go digital, is to have to release them in a way that you can actually get cards that are completely unique,
Mm.
that someone can get and say, "I've got a one of digitally of this card."
Yeah. Um, so we've had the conversations internally about our perspective on NFTs, and there's a reason why we haven't actioned on it. Is because at the end of the day, uh, it, we need to, if we're gonna do it, if we're ever gonna do it, it's because it aligns to our philosophies and our goals as a company. Just to throw it in for the sake of throwing it in, it's a big flashy thing right now. So let's chase that rabbit. No, I don't believe that's a philosophy you should ever take. If you're gonna do something, make sure you're doing it because it makes sense and it adheres to your morals and your philosophies. So as of right now, we haven't. I haven't been presented with a proposal that says something more than do it now because it's the popular thing, right? If they're presented to me saying do it because it will make this aspect of your game better or make this aspect of your community better, or it, yeah, right. You want to do it because it makes sense, not because it is the newest thing. So yeah, I see this person. I'm glad to hear that NFTs are not as part of the Kickstarter as well. It needs to be done right and implemented well. Yeah, like I've seen some
Yeah.
games chase it just because it's the thing to do, and they're making money off of it. But I've never been a person who would sacrifice short term, like sacrifice my morals for short term gains. I would rather play do things the difficult way, but the right way, so that I am like when I launched Genesis in 2017, people were like, "This isn't possible. You can't compete in this space." I was like, "No, I believe I can. I can do this," and I stuck with it, and I did it the hard way, one store at a time. And now here I am, very blessed with a wonderful community that supports me regularly, and it is that's where my balance is when it comes to that. So
Mhm.
if you're going to do it, make sure you understand the pros and cons and do what you think is right according to your community.
Agreed.
But don't just do it because it is the newest thing. Right? So no, that's awesome. Well, I'm excited to see how your Kickstarter goes, and hopefully the campaign for it goes really well. So much stuff in there, and I think what would be really cool is like I saw in your video the runes that you're putting in there, right? Like,
Hmm.
is that part of the base Kickstarter, or is that part of
Yeah,
the
it's actually
crystals?
inside the box, so you're gonna end up getting.
Okay.
One's handy. Out of my desk right now, but yeah. So there's definitely going to be stretch goals that improve the quality of things. So there's the paper map
Hmm.
that we've got right now, which we can upgrade into a linen tapestry map of the city. That's one of the goals that we want to get to. The other thing was the runes right now come in at low cost, like punch out cardboard runes.
Oh,
That
okay.
keeps everything like as a low cost point of entry for these box sets, so we can actually not have to sell them for an exorbitant amount. But for a Kickstarter side of things, yeah, this is the wood runes. I think there's a rune. So yeah, these are the wood runes that could be an upgrade, and then we've got metal runes as
Mm,
well somewhere here hiding.
yeah.
Stainless steel metal runes as well. So there's several levels of upgrade that we can do given the stretch goals that we can
Yeah.
reach. So again, it's like, oh, it'd be so nice to get to these stretch goals. So hopefully we can boost the signal for both of our projects. Chatting
Yeah.
about it, because that's one of the things in this day and age. It's the signal noise is so high. It's so hard to get the messages out. I
Yeah.
find it's like even stores. They're like, we don't know what to order anymore. They go, there's so many Kickstarters. There's so many
Yeah.
games hitting the market. They're like, we don't even know what to stock.
Yeah, it is intense, and I can't imagine the pressure and the challenges that local game stores are facing these days. My message has always been to my community, like I'm doing a lot of interviews. I mentioned to you earlier, I was uh, actually just before this, I was in back-to-back interviews.
Nice.
So for the people on, like I was talking to Ben Trading Cards and Scheming Skeletons, and that's why I was late actually to connect with you today because there's just like one interview after another. And you schedule like a 45-minute interview, but then you're talking to them for 45 minutes afterwards about life and other things. So, and they always ask me, okay, is this something you want to say to the community afterwards? And my first thing that I always say is support your local game stores.
Yeah.
This industry uh, hinges on them so much, and we do not give them nearly enough respect. So, local game stores, content creators, they're so pinnacle for what we do, and I want everyone to support them to the
And they
best of their
took
ability.
such a beating over the pandemic, so a lot of them had to close
Yeah,
down completely. When they got reopened, they
yeah,
couldn't have any games in store. They could only do curbside pickup. But then the big box
yeah,
stores, they all stayed open. Walmart stayed open, the Costco stayed open, Amazon stayed open, and so the little guys got
yeah,
humbled, right? So it's like it's extra important, I think,
yeah,
this season. And also, same thing with Christmas gifts. You could get something that comes out of a big box store, or you could support a local publisher, small publisher that does games or books or whatnot or card games, and give those as Christmas gifts.
yeah,
Because instead of getting a CEO with his third yacht somewhere, it's going to pay for braces or skates for their kids.
yeah. No, yeah, and the thing I love about the small publishers, people like you and I, it's very much the fact that uh, there's innovation comes from the people who are struggling, from people who are at the bottom. Like a lot of people at the top, they are innovating, but they're using big dollars and they're working on projects that are just not conceivable. Like Elon Musk, he's doing amazing things, and I don't want to downplay what he does on a day-to-day basis. But when you get companies who are at the top for a very long time, sometimes they forget that their role in their industry uh, is to innovate, to present something new to the community, to do something amazing. And if there aren't new entrepreneurs coming into that space, they often feel like there isn't a need to do that. And this is so I love BlackBerry. I am a huge BlackBerry fan. I'm wearing BlackBerry headphones right now. I will. My last favorite phone was a BlackBerry, but I think one of the biggest issues that BlackBerry had was they believed that they were at the top and no one could ever take them down.
Yeah,
And look where we're at now. It's we need entrepreneurs to challenge the status quo. Actually, one of the things I love uh, from Mark Rosewater, who's the lead designer for Magic the Gathering, he says this, which is restrictions breed creativity. When you are thriving to survive, that's when you can do some really awesome things. That's when you think outside of the box a lot. When you get comfortable, that's when you tend to maintain the status quo. So
those
I'm
guys
happy that
though.
you
Oh,
and I are on the scene.
yeah.
Yeah.
But Rosewater, I mean, talking about them, they had their foiling wrong on their cards for how many sets now? The
Yeah.
the foil qualities. Either you get a Dorito card, or you just couldn't even read the card. It was such bad foiling. And then the other issue is they haven't been testing their cards at all for the last many sets, probably 2 years of horrible, horrible testing, to the point where I think they did a press release last week, or maybe it wasn't this week, that they said on Magic Arena they're going to end up basically saying we're going to live balance new cards that just came out of a set on Magic Arena digitally, and they're going to be completely different from the printed cards. So they're basically giving themselves carte
Nice.
blanche to say, okay, we're just going to keep pumping out this product. We're going to fix it after it goes live, and consequences be damned. And so this is a great opportunity for the little guys to step in and go, okay, the big guys are resting on their laurels. They obviously don't care about their clients at that point. They're putting out bad product after bad product for bad quality control and no testing. So this is where all guys step in and take market share.
Well, it gives us an opportunity to present something different to the community and say, "Hey, we're trying to do something new and unique. Give us a chance. Give us a chance to show what we can do." Right.
Yep.
So, no, I'm excited to see what the future has in store for the both of us, and yeah, hopefully everything kind of goes really well for the next little while, right?
Yeah.
Especially as we start coming out of COVID, we can start doing conventions again. I
This
know
is,
someone who's actually in Quebec doing a convention this weekend. And
oh
I'm
yeah.
like, I miss them. I miss doing the convention scene. I hated doing it at the time, but now looking back, I have so many fond memories.
What's your next one? When are you going to your next one?
My next one isn't a convention. I'm doing a trade show. I'm doing Gamma.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, and then really my big thing is planning out the future Genesis tournaments. But I do want to take a look at I don't know if I'm gonna vend there because I've never been to Gen Con or Origins Toy Fair. So I'd
Hmm?
like to go there as a spectator first before, doing the deep dive and just getting a booth. Uh, but
And
I do want to do PAX again.
some of these are really hard to just get a booth. Like Gen Con, you're on a waiting list for sometimes years.
Yeah,
So you might want to start applying early because there's too many people that want to get into that show and not enough booth space.
yeah,
PAX is amazing. One of the best shows out there. I mean, we go even in the video game section, so we're completely analog,
yeah.
except for like we've got a Rune app that runs on iOS and Android, but otherwise, I mean,
Mm.
like everything's analog, and we are surrounded by video game companies, and we just kill at those shows. Like kill. People come by and like, what is
Yeah,
this? So I highly recommend it, even if you show up with just like cardboard cards surrounded by video games. You're gonna do
yeah,
well. You're gonna do well.
yeah.
Our next one is PAX
That's
Unplugged,
why we.
actually.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's gonna be
Yeah.
next week. Oh, nice drive down.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
Otakuthon's gonna be August of next year, 2022.
Mhm.
Yeah, Montreal Otakuthon. So come on out for that one.
Uh, we do EGLX in downtown Toronto. It is a video game convention.
Hmm?
And for that reason, like people see all these like indie video games, or they see the big publishers. They they come to our booth and they look at the game and they're like, "What's this?" I'm like, "Imagine Final Fantasy Tactics, but in a card game format." They're like, "All right, let's play." So they it's definitely goes really well that way. So I think we'll do EGLX, but our big thing is like we got to start planning our big tournaments. We did our championship recently.
Hmm.
That was a big event. It was like hosting a convention. It was
Oh wow,
a lot of work went into it. And then next year we got to do some bigger ones. I know my community is definitely looking for some big tournaments to play in for next year. So hopefully a few in the States and a few in Europe as well, because we have a huge following in Europe as well.
nice.
So I'm hoping that we can get that spectrum going.
That's very good. Yeah, Europe's always got a really thriving tabletop scene. They've had it for a long time. Like France is a huge hub for role playing games.
Oh,
Germany, they love their board
yeah,
games. Iceland's invited us to go to Viking conventions, so we've got to get out there for that. Um, we've got like two licenses so far, which is French and Spanish. But just last week,
okay,
I got approached from a company in Brazil to do a Brazilian license, Portuguese license. I
yeah,
say Brazilian license, Portuguese language license. So
yeah,
I never thought I'd see
nice.
like Vikings in Portuguese. My wife will be happy.
Oh, that'd be awesome. All right, I think this is a good place to kind of wrap it up. Before we
Absolutely.
go, let's give one last shout out for our Kickstarters and letting people know where they can go. So if you want to go first.
Sure. So we've got a Kickstarter running right now. It's called the Ultimate Viking Anthology. It is a role playing game and a whole bunch of books and graphic novels. So you can come check it out, back a book or back the entire anthology.
Yeah. And then on my end, we're doing the Kickstarter for Genesis Battle of Champions Origins. It is the latest set in Genesis, and it'll be a good kind of the launching point for any new player to get into the game. But our big recommendation is since the game's already on the market, if you want to go learn how to play Genesis, we got go to your local game store, pick up a starter kit, learn how to play, and then after you learn, go back us on the Kickstarter if you enjoy it. So,
Awesome.
well, that's awesome. All right. Thank you,
All
Andrew,
right.
so much.
Sad,
It's
thanks
great
for
catching up with
putting
you.
this together.
Yeah.
Raph, thanks
And
for
Raf,
joining us. You
I
have to
miss you
join.
so much. It's going to be good to see you again soon.
All right. Thanks for everyone coming in and tuning in. Skål.